Hi, Shira Stein from Bloomberg Law. Has HHS instructed FDA to speed up the process by which pharmacies can get certified to dispense mifepristone? And you also mentioned access to medication abortion. Will that include supporting Gen Biopro's ongoing lawsuit in Mississippi? The manufacturer is arguing that the FDA REMS preempts Mississippi's additional restrictions.
So medication abortion is available. Drugs like mifepristone have been shown to be safe and effective. I will let the FDA respond to what it will do and what it is in the process of doing. But I certainly will tell you that we are working with the FDA to make sure that they have every opportunity to continue to provide Americans with access to safe and effective treatments. We will continue to work with partners, whether public or private, to make sure that women have access to the reproductive care services and treatments that they need.
Thank you. Next question. Maya Goldman.
Hi, Maya Goldman with Modern Healthcare. You mentioned that you're directing OCR to protect privacy for patients and providers. Can you elaborate on what that will look like?
Under federal law, patients have rights to privacy. They have rights to access to certain types of care. We will make sure that we both investigate and then enforce the law to make sure that providers are in compliance, that patients are being provided with the care that they deserve. We don't want anyone's private health information, for example, to be leaked in ways that violate federal law. We also want to make sure that no one misunderstands what the Supreme Court's ruling on Friday in Dobbs means, that they do not believe that they have any rights whatsoever. Rights continue forward, whether it's family planning, whether it is in birth control services, and we want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding and that we will enforce any violations of those rights. Yeah, Mike.
Quick follow-up. Do you have a sense of what specific actions to enforce those will look like, though? Will that be audits, surveys? What will that possibly look like?
Just as we're keeping every option on the table of what we can try to do, we will keep every option on the table of what we can do to enforce the law.
Okay, our next question comes from Victoria Knight.
Victoria Knight, Kaiser Health News. Thank you. Thank you. So congressional Democrats are calling for the Biden administration to create clinics where people could access abortions on federal lands. Are there any plans to do so? And if so, where would that be? Would that be on national park land, or would that be in VA facilities? Is that something y'all are looking at? Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. What I can tell you is that we are aware of a number of ideas and proposals, many of which we have been considering internally ourselves. We have made no decisions yet. We certainly would have conversation with the President to make sure we implement his directives to us in trying to protect women's reproductive health care services. But as I said, every option is on the table. We will take a look at everything we can, and everything we do will be in compliance with the law.
Okay, Selena Simmons-Duffin from NPR.
Hi, I'm Selena Simmons-Duffin from NPR. My question is, you've mentioned a bunch of health agencies, including FDA and CMS, and the things that is happening there. I haven't heard you mention CDC, and I'm curious about the public health impact. In this case, I mean, a lot of experts are warning that pregnant people are going to die, and CDC does prevention and looks at public health big picture. So what actions could CDC be doing, or what is happening on that front?
And I won't pretend to be able to speak eloquently for everything CDC can do, and so I know you'll pose the question directly to CDC, but this is what I can tell you. They are in the business of prevention. They are in the business of education and information, and I guarantee you that we will be using every agency, including CDC, to make sure that we are getting to Americans the information they need so they can exercise their rights. And so CDC will obviously play an important role, especially as we look at this on a grander scale of the impact to public health.
Okay, we'll take another question at this point. Let's see. Cheryl Stolberg, New York Times. Yes.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Stolberg from the New York Times. Two questions. First, With respect to medication abortion, is it the position of the department that because the FDA has approved these pills, that any doctor in any state may prescribe them? And then second, with respect to Planned Parenthood, you know that Planned Parenthood has been excluded from Medicaid family planning programs in certain states, including Missouri. And is it the department's position that those exclusions are a violation of federal law?
And so, Cheryl, because those are somewhat precise questions, I'm going to try to give you as precise an answer as I believe at this stage, at least I can. And with my legal counsel in front of me, I want to make sure I stay within my lane. FDA has found medication abortion treatments like mifepristone safe and effective. In this country, in order for drugs to be made available to the American public, the FDA must act, consider that drug, and announce whether or not it has found it to be safe and effective. Mifepristone, those medications that may be classified as medication abortion that have received FDA's approval as safe and effective are therefore available for prescription. What I won't do in answering your question is tell you what precisely that means, because I want to, as I said before, we're going to stay within the confines of the law. Even though it's a law that I personally believe jeopardizes the health of women, we will stay within the confines of the law. I want to make sure that whatever we tell you is within the confines of the law. Medication abortion, those treatments that FDA has signed off on as safe and effective are available to be prescribed. Under what conditions? Stay tuned. On the second question, which was? I can hear you.
Yeah, the second question was Planned Parenthood contends that its exclusion from state family planning programs violates federal law. And do you agree that that violates federal law?
Under our laws, our federal laws, there are certain services that must be made available to those who are receiving care under programs administered or funded by the federal government. That includes, in some cases, abortion services under certain conditions. We will make sure that if a state is utilizing federal funds under federal programs, healthcare programs, that they respect the laws at the federal level, in which in many cases include abortion care services under certain conditions.
We're going to take another question now. Rachel Nagel of ABC News.
I'm Mary Bruce with ABC News. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So far, you seem to have been restating largely existing policy, reminding Americans of the assistance that is available. But you yourself just said this decision was not unpredictable. When can we expect more concrete steps to be announced? What's the holdup here? Or are you acknowledging that your hands are largely tied?
Mary, it was a long decision, and it did upend 50 years of precedent. And so you want to make sure that what you do is within, as I said, the confines of the law. We're not interested in going rogue and doing things just because. We want to make sure what we tell Americans is accurate, because we know Americans are hearing a lot of inaccurate information. And so to every American who's impacted, my apologies that as I said, we can't tell you there's a silver bullet. But what I am saying to you is that the more we dig, we will do everything we can with what we find to make sure we're protecting women's reproductive health care services. It takes a little time because we want to do it right and we want to do it according to the law.
And just one follow-up. You mentioned yesterday that you're looking at possible ways to help women with transportation, women who may need to travel to another state to get an abortion. What options are on the table? Are you considering vouchers, things like that? And how do you ensure that it doesn't conflict with the Hyde Amendment?
Yeah. Once we tell you exactly what we believe we are able to do and have the money to do, we will let you know. But until then, what I can simply say to you is every option is on the table. Thank you.
One more question, it looks like. We'll move to the third row. Yeah.
Thank you. Shafali Luthra with the 19th. Sorry about that. I wanted to go back to the question about preemption in particular. Are you in the DOJ thinking seriously about filing a lawsuit that might challenge state laws banning access to medication abortion given the FDA's approval? And as a follow-up to that, for the folks who are concerned about being criminalized, if they do take mifepristone and go to the ER, are you prepared to defend them in court?
We will certainly assert and defend our legal authorities. We will certainly enforce federal law. We will absolutely protect Americans' rights to care under federal law. And we will do everything we can to make sure Americans understand what their rights are. What exactly that translates into depends on what a state tries to do. And what I can simply tell you is that we will continue to try to clarify for you, but mostly for the American public, what their rights are, what our authorities are, and so that way they know if indeed anyone, whether a state politician or a provider in your state, is violating your rights. We'll try to be there, and we'll try to make it clear what your rights are. But it's tough to answer some of these questions more precisely until we know exactly what the states are doing. If we see a state, for example, trying to deny a particular patient care in an emergency room, which could include abortion care services if it's appropriate to preserve that woman's life or health, we will take action. We will do everything we can. But we have to make sure first Americans know what their rights are. And so that's why this is so important, because we know that there is misinformation out there about what the Supreme Court did. We want to make sure it's clear that Americans didn't lose every right they have. Americans still can assert their rights, and we will do everything we can to protect them.
If I can follow up to that.
Yeah.
States are already enforcing laws that ban access to medication abortion. Isn't that already in conflict with the FDA's approval?
We have heard cases, we have heard reports and complaints. We are going to move as aggressively as we can under the law to both investigate and then enforce. We have to be able to enforce based on the law, and so we have to make sure we've collected the evidence, but we are intent on protecting people's rights under the law.